Thank you ever so much for asking me along to just talk. And I think just to put a bit of context to it, although I was the eco champion, it's been a long process. It's teamwork, so it's involved lots of people, the vicar Tom, people from the community project like Rosalind, Hannah on our advisory group, Kurt, our caretaker, Lucy, our administrator. So I'm just going to sort of walk you through our sort of journey and and then some questions at the end. And I think the other thing is every church is unique. And so some of this may not be applicable to you, but I'll try and pull out some lessons at the end. So here we go. I first did this presentation in 2021 during COVID, and we just got silver. And so the first couple of slides, some of you might have seen before, a little bit about our church. If you're not familiar, St. Christopher's, we're based at the edge of the inner city. We're quite a complicated church. Every church says they're complicated. So our excuse of being complicated is we've got quite a few buildings, vicarage, church, a community centre, and some off-site buildings we use to deliver our community work in. We have quite a range of users in our buildings. So quite a lot of the time, actually Sundays are sometimes our least busy days. We've got a lot of community use going on. And again, typical for Birmingham, quite a diverse congregation and background. So that's a little bit about us. I suppose why we did Eco Church is probably started in 2016. So it's about 10 years to get to where we are now. But really early on, we were doing quite a few things about the environment through teaching, lighting, reducing waste, litter picking with local mosque, running a place of welcome. But one of the things we felt we needed was a framework. So a framework's really helpful at Eco Church because it just helps you focus on where you should go. I'm from an environmental background, and actually, it's really terrible being from an environmental background because you always think you might know best. And actually, it's really liberating just to have a framework saying, this is what we're working in, what can we do next? So I found it very, very useful. And so did other people just having a framework to work within. Uh, this is what we did in 2020. We filled in what was then the Eco Church survey. So I'll come back to that in a minute. Um, so we filled it in and we did it together with the vicar, the church administrator. We consulted with children in our group. So we used some Duplo to basically look at some priorities, how many Duplo blocks in a particular box for priorities. And then I think the thing I stressed last time is we went to the church council. So we made very much made it a corporate thing. Um, we had a sort of legacy of setting aside a certain amount of money for overseas mission, and we reviewed what mission means. And obviously, that means supporting some of our community activity in Birmingham, some overseas stuff, but also it's recognised that caring for the environment is definitely part of mission. So that was good. And also, we agreed we'd have an action plan to work towards gold over several years. Um, we got the submission for silver just the first month of COVID and lockdown. So since then, obviously, we've come out of COVID and we've gradually been chipping away at things. I'll go back to the survey perhaps a bit later on, but we did effectively then work on things gradually. Let's have a look. So basically, over the next years, we gradually made improvements in the areas we were silver on. So it was, I suppose quite systematic, saying where can we improve. Um, so we looked at land. We did a sort of survey with children and parents. This really brilliant app called iSeek. You can point at something and it will tell you what species is. So we used that and identified 88 different species on quite a scrubby bit of church ground and garden, added that to a sort of annual survey, and then used that for a land management plan. I'll just briefly show our land management plan because this is new for gold. You have to do one of these. And effectively, it's a plan of your church grounds and sort of annotated with a supporting document saying where do you think you can maintain or improve um, your habitat for wildlife. So we're already doing a lot of this. Our caretaker Kurt and others have been doing this for a while. So we put this in a plan, submitted our gold application, and some of the things we have to do now are to basically get proper ownership of this, revisit it, so it's clear who's doing what. But again, a lot of this is probably just wrapping up what you're already doing and presenting it in a particular way for Eco Church. It has to be said, all credit to our vicar, not a great gardener, but we definitely scored points because the end of his garden which is joined to the church garden and opened up for community events, is a brilliant haven for wildlife. There's a fox down there, all sorts of things. Next bit we looked at was buildings. This is probably our weakest area and probably the most complex for us, partly because we've got multi-use and multi-types of buildings run by either the church or its separate charity, the Springfield project. We had a very helpful email a couple of years ago from the diocese telling us we're in the top 20% of energy users for the diocese. Um, and actually, we were delighted. The reason we're top 20% is because our buildings are being used all the time. Um, so again, that's one of the issues for us about the pattern of use. And it's quite interesting being involved in energy surveys for other churches and religious buildings. Quite often, it's not the sanctuary or the
It was
holy
a very
place
lucky day for the train.
or the holy place of the building. It's the neglected part of the church. It's the place where the mothers and toddlers group meet or the community bit. So it's quite interesting looking at how you view your building and actually where the energy use is. We used a scheme run by Face for a Low Carbon Future in Birmingham to do some audits of our buildings and thermal imaging. So the very bright red one is the more modern building, which leaks less energy. The one that's very bright orange is all the windows of the church building. Um, the other picture is what we call a Kurt's Cave. So that's all the heating and controls for the community centre. And one of the key actions was not a green roof, not PV or photovoltaics. It was just getting the energy system to work as it should do. So that's been a big focus for the community building. We looked at air circulation or heat circulation fans and very grateful for the Quakers to show us what they've been using. We're still waiting for results to come back from that saying, is it really cost effective? But it was, yeah, it was quite impressive to go and see what other people are doing. Um, we found one of the most cost effective ways to reduce our impact was to switch to the Church of England approved green energy tariffs for electricity and gas. Because yes, they are more expensive, but paying, say, for example, £1,000 more to reduce your impact is a lot cheaper than doing a lot of retrofit to quite difficult buildings. So that's the route we went down, switching our tariffs. We've changed our lighting. We've had a refurbishment of part of the church and gone to electric heating. Um, we've started to look at sort of glazing, um, and then the community centres also accessed other support from a scheme. The most difficult one is the vicarage, and that's up to the diocese to really sort of improve that. And I will just wave my flag here. I think the vicarages should be prioritised. Any employer should be prioritising their workforce, and actually, the vicarages within the Church of England are the ones that probably produce a lot of energy. It's where people spend a lot of time, and quite often sort of out of scope for action. So again, we've got a survey done. We know the boiler needs replacing. So we've shown action. So when it came to the Eco Church survey, we could show we've done audits. We could show we made action. We could show what we knew what we can do next. But I think just to reassure people, it wasn't an amazing solar panel, double glazed, new building. It was just showing a clear plan of action and some clear progress on it. Um, So those are the building bits. Community aspect of the eco church bit is probably our strongest. And, why wouldn't it be? We've got an arm's length community charity, populated with fantastic staff and volunteers serving the community, delivering a range of services such as family support, nursery, community events. They've been doing it for 20 years, building trust in the local community. So what the Springfield project's done is effectively its main streamed the environment within its existing activities. It was doing this before, but it's increasingly done it. So nursery curriculum, the environments in there, there are activities such as mud kitchens, going for walks. They've got some funding to do green holiday clubs. These are outdoors in parks during school holidays to help people engage with nature. Um, they've been successful doing a child-friendly neighborhood, which is all about how to children improve their areas. Uh, they've had a long history of community and arts. Just because you're in a quite a challenging, poor area doesn't mean you shouldn't have access to brilliant arts. And so they've done loads of great community arts, both in the community centre and in the church, involving an environment and weaving and making all sorts of things. They've done social prescription, which is have you thought about going on a guided walk in your area? And again, they've accessed funding around energy advice, walking, cycling advice for individuals via a program funded for the lottery. Now, there's lots of things you can do without having a community project. It could just be partnering with other groups. Um, and I think the key thing here is it's just been integrated into what the community project's already doing, rather than trying to do something extra special. I haven't done the link here, but if you look at Springfield Project Impact Report, it will give you a sense of how the environment's woven into a range of activities it does. And the church partners with that as well in terms of providing some of the community activities, some of the space, some of the volunteers, as well as the majority of trustees for the charity. The last bit is sort of lifestyle. And we've just had an ongoing journey where this asks the Eco Church survey asks, how are you helping people's lifestyle impacts? So the reality is, I know we tend to get obsessed with the buildings. Generally, your congregation will have a much bigger impact than the building they go to once or twice a week. And so this is really keen about how do you work with people where they are and take them on a journey so they start making changes. Um, and I think we've been on a journey for this, sort of trying to be values led. There's some brilliant work by an organisation called Climate Outreach, which talks about working with faith groups and talks about starting with where people are at and effectively not sort of telling people exactly what to do, but giving them the ideas of where to start. So
Right.
within the church, we've done events with a focus on how to engage with scripture, prayer, practical actions. We've done a Lent course a couple of years ago, and not a huge number of people from the church actually went on the Lent course. But what we did is each Sunday, people went on a Lent course with basically fed back to the wider congregation saying, we learnt about this, and this is one action I tried. So that's a way of using a small group just to get the message out to a larger one. Um, and then we've also done sustainability lifestyle audits, mostly with community. Some of it was piloted early on with members of the congregation. This is based on something called One Planet Living. It's been developed by Eco Birmingham. And again, it's saying there's lots of things you could do, but what's the priority for you? What's the most important? So, for example, for me, I love food. I can't afford to go organic and change everything. But within my food, I really like coffee and I really like chocolate. So those are the things I'm prioritizing switching to organic and fair trade. So it's taking people on that sort of journey. Um, so I think a couple of lessons. we made a mistake filling the survey in. So we filled the survey in, I think it must have been January last year, and we made a mistake. We thought we were filling in the old survey, and we ended up by accident filling in the new survey, which is a bit more exacting and is a bit harder. And then it took a bit longer because they weren't expecting anyone to be silly enough to fill the new survey in so quickly. Um, so our experience of the new survey is there is more evidence involved. There is more focus on lifestyle, but one of the things we found encouraging, you can fill it in, and especially for gold, what will happen is the Eco Church team will come back to you after reviewing it and just ask for additional information, saying, "Can you just tell us a bit more about X? Can you provide a policy about, for this?" And so we had a bit of dialogue about providing a bit more evidence, which was really helpful. And effectively, they don't want to fail anyone, but they do want to maintain a standard and they do want to encourage people. So we had a great site visit, um, looking at the evidence, meeting the team for doing all the actions, and it was a really positive experience. So if you are, I'll talk about the other lessons, but if you are thinking about going for gold, don't be put off, but just think about the things you want to work on and accept it will take time. Um, on this last slide, you can look at things, things we learned. I know it's really obvious. Don't do it alone. I made the mistake of initially just trying to get things going. It didn't work. We had to build a team, um, have a sort of formal eco champion that was recognised by the PCC each year, report back to the governance of the church, so report back to the church council. And also, we probably just had meetings once a quarter and just to keep things ticking along, just to sort of share responsibility. Um, the other thing is it's just a long game. It's being patient. It's much better to focus on one or maybe two actions a year, get them done, and report progress and move on to the next ones, because that is a lot more feasible with lots of different priorities in the church, capacity of volunteers. Um, but you do that for 5 years, you can achieve five things. You try and do five things in 1 year, you'll achieve nothing because it will just be too much. Um, Also report back at your AGM. So that's been really useful. It may not feel you're achieving much, but each year to look back and say, this is what we've done, this is what I'm planning next year, keeps it on the agenda. Um, I suppose make sure it's seen as central to the work of the church. This is always a struggle. It can always be seen as, oh, it's that person's thing, or it's that person's bugbear or hobby horse, or whatever you want to call it. It is effectively centrally part of the mission of the church, just as central as worship, teaching, healing, evangelism, helping your neighbour. So anything you can do to gently remind people this is the fifth mark of mission, if you're part of Church of England. It was really helpful getting the PCC to say they would fund improvements from our mission budget, because that's a huge change for our church to say actually mission includes caring for the environment. But anything along those lines um, is just really, really helpful and sort of bringing things back to why we're doing it. As the prayer said at the beginning of the session. Um, the last thing, I don't know how to solve this, but I think just be aware it can just be a very technical exercise. Change light bulbs, tick some boxes, improve your procurement, improve your buildings, and that's fine. But there needs to be a constant, I suppose, wrestle to say, well, how am I involving God in this? How are we reflecting on priorities? How are we spending time to listen? How are we asking the Holy Spirit to guide us? And I think that is one of the key things of having that there, um, because otherwise it could just be a technical exercise. And yes, you could get things done, but what's the point if you're not doing it for God, if you're not involving the Holy Spirit and thinking about how does this work out, um, it one, you're not going to be able to do it, and two, you're not going to be able to ask for help and guidance. Um, and I think the last bit is any sort of progress on this agenda, God will want to be blessed and is brilliant. So I don't want people to be disheartened by the fact that you're bronze or silver and gold's a bit hard. Maybe it is just right for you to stay at silver and keep on doing improvements. That is brilliant. But just have a look at the sort of gold framework of, are there ideas about what you could do next? And do communicate it. We've been really poor at communicating it. Stuff's on our website now, so we're doing this session, but it is really important to communicate what you're doing, because it encourages other people in your surrounding community and your church and your congregation. So that is me. I'm going to stop sharing now.
Thank you, Simon. That was a brilliant run through and really, really encouraging. And we thought at this point we'd ask Tom to maybe just make a couple of comments, maybe for a Tom, are you there?
Yeah, yeah. I think really just to sort of reiterate everything that Simon said, and also to say that at St Christopher's we've been very blessed to have Simon, who is and sort of a kind of environmental expert. Really, he probably wouldn't say that, but he is. And not every church has that person, at least not in the sense of that, professional training and so on. So I would want to sort of flag immediately that we've been in a very privileged position, and as I say, I wouldn't want anyone to as Simon said, to feel sort of guilty or kind of sort of oppressed in any way. It is about doing what you can do, not getting stressed about what you can't. I think I'd just highlight two or three things. One is if to get the vicar involved, and get them invested in it, because I think that really matters, so that it stops becoming something which is a sort of sideline, and it actually becomes something which is central and fundamental to the life and mission of the church. And if that means a bit of badgering and a bit of nagging, then I think that's a good and godly thing to do. Try and get this sort of well embedded in the pattern of PCC meetings, so that there's some kind of a report going to the PCC, say 3 or 4 times a year. Make sure it's there in the annual report, and just make it part of church life. And some people have said that a lot about being a Christian is to turn up, keep turning up, and keep turning up together. And if you do those things with this on the agenda, things will happen. They will. So I think that would be my first one, and I think the second one is, as you make decisions, and everyone I think will very recognise this, that there will be a little bit of pushback from time to time. So a really lovely, long-standing member of our congregation couldn't understand why we were paying more for our utilities, just not a lot, but a little bit more. And he found that really hard to understand. But obviously we did try and explain. But at the end of the day, when you've made that decision, then to stick to your guns, and saying, "Oh, look, this is about our mission and our discipleship." And I mean, my sort of hobby horse is single-use plastic. I can't abide it. And it makes shared lunches quite a lot harder if you don't have single-use plastic. You've got to wash everything up, or it's much harder. And I think there has to be a sort of ongoing articulation about why this is a good thing to do, why it's a spiritual thing to do. Um, and 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 as I say, finally, just have a go. We planted some trees along one little border we've got, and honestly, it's only about sort of 6 feet wide. This border between our land and our ground and the pavement. And we planted some trees there, and I only found out afterwards that we were supposed to have the Archdeacon's permission before we planted them. So, if he's not on the call, don't tell him. But and they're still alive. They're still alive. And it's just so encouraging that these trees are still alive, and it's just having a go. So yeah, I hope that's helpful.
That's wonderful, Tom, and it's great to have your perspective as well, along with Simon's. And what we wanted to do now, we've got an hour, just under an hour left, and we wanted to throw it open to people to ask you and Simon difficult questions. Caroline's going to check that if you're a bit shy and you don't really want to be recorded, then put your question in the chat. Otherwise, those people that can bring up their electronic hand. I think it's in React at the bottom. And please do bring your questions, because now's the chance to learn what we can from Simon and Tom. Shall
So,
I kick up? Oh, sorry. Have
yeah.
we
So
got
I just
somebody?
so
Go on.
while you're thinking about questions, one of the things I didn't mention is the advisory group we had was very small. It was literally Tom, myself, and Hannah. So we would sort of meet once a quarter, but then involve other people. So I think just encourage people who don't need a very big advisory group. Also, there's something Tom said about the skill set. Yes, I definitely got environmental background stuff, but in terms of identifying the skill set to replace me, it is just someone who is organized, someone who can turn up, and someone who can get other people to turn up and move through actions. So I think just to encourage people, a lot of it is like Tom's saying, it's just the turning up together and doing something. Hopefully that's given enough time for people to think about questions.
Has anybody?
So
Oh,
Alison's got her hand up.
okay. Alison, you start.
Thank you. Yeah, really helpful. Thank you very much, and thank you for saying that it's okay to be in the bottom 20%. Because as a fellow church in that category, it's always something that has really worried me, and you've made me feel a lot better about it. But I mean, just a quickie, and I know it's only a very small part of it, but have your carbon emissions, steadily come down over the period that you've been doing it? It's just I'm very aware that ours are very high, and we're trying to get them down, but we've still got a long way to go. So just really interested to know if they have been reduced, and if so, what has your tonnage come down from and to?
We
Thank you.
we've well, to reassure people, we found this really difficult because we've done the parish return, and also we've had a major building work. So last year we had some, or the year before, had some really major building work. So we didn't actually meet in the cold church. We met in another room. So two things. One, we found it very difficult to compare like for like, but we think it is definitely coming down, just because we've got more efficient electric heaters and better use of the building. But actually, the thing that's made the biggest impact is switching tariffs. So no matter how much energy we're using, if it's a green tariff, that has more impact. So I think we have struggled with it in terms of we've had fluctuating building work, fluctuating use of the building for COVID, fluctuating activity depending on how much the community use has been using the building. So the thing that I suppose gave us the most confidence was having the audits of the building and actually having some actions to follow, knowing that we were going the right direction. So those actions included switching tariff, changing lights, changing leaking taps. We've got a heat excluder thing on the door. We need to have some more double glazing. But the newer building's been a lot easier. They've just changed the LED lighting over time, and they've just been trying to get the energy management system to work as it's meant to. So some of it's just looking at the heating controls. Are they working as they're meant to? Is it being serviced? So those are the things I think are making the biggest difference at the moment. There are I'm always comments from people saying, let's put a mezzanine in, let's double, do some amazing building works for our church building. The reality is that will cost millions of pounds and it's not cost effective. It's more cost effective to change the tariff and improve insulation. Um, so we've got a plan to start reducing. We think it is reducing. I think it'll take another year of no building work and stability. Tom, do you want to add anything to that? Have I completely fudged it?
I think that's right. I think generally speaking, we've struggled to bring that down, but because we've switched to a green provider, we've felt that we are deliberately trying to buy energy produced renewably. So even though our consumption is still quite high, we hope and trust that our footprint is coming down.
Thank you both. And we've got a question from David Shaw. And just to say, Fran Ellis, we'll come to yours. We can see it in the chat. So don't worry, we'll come to that one. David, do you want to ask your question?
Yes, thank you ever so much, Simon, for your presentation. I'm thinking in terms of lifestyle, which is one of the challenges that I think we probably all have. And it's about, you spoke about a sustainability lifestyle audit on Planet Living.
Yeah.
And how often did you run that to monitor changes of behaviour, or didn't you? How did you handle that? I'd find that helpful.
So I'll try and find the link and put it in the chat. So Eco Birmingham have developed it, but they developed initially testing it with the congregation and community. So it is a online tool. You can just put in, there's 10 categories, and then it gives you some suggestions about things you can do. So in terms of the audit, there's quite a big community project fund that the Springfield project's involved with, which is going to do monitoring of how effective lifestyle changes have been over a 3-year period. So they're just starting at the moment. One of the things they found is, I've sort of mentioned it before, it's being values driven, which means you don't go in and say, let me tell you what you need. Where are you at? So I'll just give you a little example story. Through the Springfield project, they've worked with a group of Asian women that accessed the project, and they got a facilitator in from Eco Birmingham to look at One Planet Living. Here's 10 things you could do. What's the most important for you? The correct answer for that group would be, I'm wasting a lot of energy. I need to change my light bulbs and insulate my house. That is the correct technical answer. That is not what the group said. The group were asked what's the most important thing for them, and they were saying, I live in a multi-generational house, it's overcrowded, and my wardrobes are bursting to the seams of clothes I have to wear to lots of big Asian weddings over the summer, at least 10. That's what's important to me. So the group discussed it and they decided they'd do a swap shop where they all brought in their extra clothes. They swapped the clothes, they earned some money. They got some new clothes to wear to a whole lot of new weddings. They emptied space in their wardrobes. They had a great time. And then they said, what next? And I think they're now looking at something else. So it doesn't answer your question about sort of monitoring overall change, but it does start saying it's getting people to do something on their terms and not feel too guilty about it. I think there'll be a proper assessment of the sustainability stuff in a year's time. I think the Lent group I mentioned was really good because you had a direct, let's look at a particular topic and then let's report back what change you've made. So there was a nice bit of accountability and there was a nice bit of what worked and what didn't. But it wasn't very sort of metrics driven.
Thank you.
And thank you, Simon. And we'll come to John in a minute, but we've got two questions in the chat. One about what's your main financial sources, and did you apply for any grants or funds? And if so, can you recommend any worth looking into? Which are kind of both. Yeah.
Right. I will, I can't multitask. I'll try and find this link. So main financial sources were some of our own resources in terms of our own giving as a congregation, which is set aside in budget. So we mentioned about the mission budget, some money being put aside for paying sort of going towards extra costs of the tariffs. We accessed a grant funded program to do energy audits for free from Face for Low Carbon Future that's run in Birmingham. And that sort of pre went before some of the diocese sort of small grants for energy audits. So that was sort of a forerunner of those. The building work stuff we did, it was a sort of refurbishment of the buildings. So there was whole sorts of things, kitchens, all sorts of stuff. So that was a range of grant funding and giving, of which within that there were some environmental measures. And the Springfield project is funded by a range of sources of funding, but the environmental stuff, additional environmental stuff, is funded for a 3-year lottery program where they're working with another community in Birmingham to compare results about how to basically be a trusted way into the community to get people to change. So it's a range of sources really. Oh yes, right. Yeah. In the community section, how did you evidence that what you're doing beyond the local, i.e. national and global? So on the global bit, we supported Tier Fund on particular campaigns to get the church behind particular petitions. We did a church event around writing on a postcard and sending it to number 10 to link in with a particular campaign. So I think we were quite selective about trying to find a partner. Quite often it was Tier Fund, working out once a year, is there something around the environment or global justice we as a church could support? The national one is we would occasionally, I think, mostly through community partners, look at sharing good practice. So I think that it's looking for evidence of have you got a plan of how you could, with your limited resources, support a national or international campaign? Can you do it in a creative way or fun way? That's what we did. And I think again, it's quite live for us as a congregation. We've got people from lots of different places. And I think this is one of the issues about language and things, certainly because I'm from an environmental background. If you said you shouldn't fly, that means we're telling 20% of our congregation they should never see their family again. It is not, it doesn't quite work. However, talking about something about a campaign to reduce climate because of flooding resonates a lot because people's extended family are being flooded regularly um, in quite dramatic ways. So again, I suppose work with the community you've got about what's important for them.
That's really, really helpful, Simon. Thanks. And shall we come to John Hayward at St. Peter's Mainly?
You're
You're
muted, John.
muted.
Hello, Simon. Have you got any tips about how to make contact with local C of E churches and ecumenical churches to increase the take up locally? And the second part of my question would be, did you have any success in influencing your local MP?
We didn't, in terms of local MP, no, and there's a whole lot of different reasons for that. In terms of our local councillors, absolutely yes, they would come along to the community events. We did. If anything, our local councillors, the biggest complaint for our local councillors is that the community didn't raise local improvement issues around flooding or energy enough. Because as a local councillor, you can only go to your colleagues and argue your case if you've got hundreds of people saying we want to improve our area. And actually, that's some of the councillors used some of our events to try and gauge what was important for people. So I think there is a real role there to involve your councillor and to get people to engage with them. But we didn't really engage with the local MP. There's a question here about what sort of record keeping audit trail did you have to provide? In terms of filling the Eco Church form in, often we provided additional information. So one of the great things about, if it's Tom was saying, being part of the governance of the church is you've done regular reports to your PCC. In our annual report to the Charity Commission, we have our accounts and also our annual report, which has a section of what we've done about the environment. That's a public record. So in terms of record keeping, if you can tie it with your normal governance reporting, in terms of your PCC, your AGM, you've got a trail there of things you've done that you've publicly reported on. The energy audit stuff, we basically provided the reports, the energy audits we've done and progress to date. The land management plan, we'd sort of done one, but not many people had. So we had a go and submitted it and got some feedback on that. We had to do a 360-degree online survey for the different impacts of our church, which was quite easy to do. It's designed for charities. So we had to do that again because we'd already done the energy bit. So we had to refill that in again to produce the report. So those are the main sort of audit things. Tom, when they came to visit, they were just walked around and wanted to see things. Is that right? I mean, I didn't get big folders of paper out.
No, they were. I mean, they were very, very affirming and very much wanted to sort of say how pleased they were with what we had done, rather than identifying what we hadn't done. I was just wondering if I could come back on the lifestyle thing. The Springfield project, which is the community project, which has grown out of St Christopher's and now is a separate legal body, they have played their part in this, and they had quite long discussions about what differences they might make. And one of the things they now sort of have around the centre is big posters saying meat-free Mondays. So they're encouraging all their staff to have meat-free Mondays, and it's not compulsory. No one there isn't a sort of lunch patrol going around people's packed lunches or anything, but it's just a really simple thing, that actually that was what they identified that they could change. And the other thing was to try and drive down their usage of Amazon, and instead try and shop locally. If you'd said to me what's going to emerge from the Springfield project, I'd have talked about light bulbs and glazing and things like that, but that wasn't where they were at. And actually, they came up with two really good ideas. And I think giving people the freedom to have those conversations without sort of preconceived conclusions is a really, it's one of the best bits of the conversation.
That's brilliant, thank you. And it, it stops it being sort of preachy and yeah. We've got Phil Banting from Christchurch, Selly Park. If you'd like to ask your question, Phil.
Yes, hello. Yeah, yes, thanks. So to put in the picture, we got silver some years ago and started looking at gold, and then the new survey came in, and I think it became clear to us fairly quickly that if you want to get gold, you've got to make it absolutely central to the life of the church. I think you've used that phrase yourself. It's no good having it a bolt on extra. It's got to be right at the heart of everything that you do. And I think in a church like ours, I think like your church, we're a busy place. One of the things that we're struggling with at the moment is how to manage volunteer time. Everybody wants their particular project to run and their particular activity to run, and it does take a lot of resources. So I just wonder if you could say a bit more about how you actually managed to achieve this centrality. I mean, how does it look, for example, in terms of Sunday teaching? If you're an average, say, member of the church, you come along to a Sunday or some other event, how does it actually look in practice? To see that environment is central to what you're doing.
Okay, I'll go first then. I think it's a really interesting question because actually, I think one of the successes we've had is, yes, we can fill all the boxes in and things like that. But I think when you come into the church, it doesn't feel like it's central because there's lots of small things that you might notice or not notice. So it's really interesting with the form. You have to fill in, what would it look like? How would you know? We haven't got solar panels outside, but it's lots of small things adding up. So it would be, you'd come into the church and you notice there's some trees outside and some nicely planted stuff in an area that isn't very nice. You'd come into the church and notice there's a door that does the heating. If you're cycling, you'll either be welcome to have your bike in the church, or there's a special cage to put it in, but probably bring your pram in. When you come to refreshments, you'll notice it's being served in a mug, and you've got waste segregation. When it comes to, you might notice the lighting now, you can actually see and appears to be sort of energy saving. I cannot guarantee the church would be warm, but it would hopefully be warmish. When it comes to intercessions, quite often they're just because, I mean, it's so obvious. You just look at the news. Why would you not have a prayer about creation in there? In terms of teaching, depending what the passage is being taught on, there'll be a link to creation if that's what the passage is saying. But if you're, you might go Sunday and it's not part of the main sermon, but it would be if you were there for, let's say, 4 months. If you're a young person going out to Sunday school, again, it wouldn't necessarily be every Sunday school, but at some time in the term, there would be some part of the curriculum talking about creation. And then there'd be other activities in terms of bringing shared lunch, encouraging people to bring vegetarian stuff, making sure there's no food waste, other activities about using the shared space in the garden. So I think the biggest challenge for us, and we only just put it on the website, and I'm going to be having to talk to our congregation on Sundays, it's quite a long list. I haven't gone through all of them. We have done a lot, but it's just been behind the scenes or woven into the way we are. It hasn't been unveiling a big thing. So there is a real, I think, creative tension there of how do you weave it into what you do so it's normal, without looking for to make it a big thing. Tom, I don't know if you want to.
What it is, it is about the little things. So we we no longer have a weekly newsletter, a physical newsletter. We used to print, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 of these every week. So we send out an email, and we put all the notices on the screen. Now, there's probably churches that have been doing that for decades, but that was just a little sign of us catching up, and saying, actually, you don't need to send people away with a printed piece of A4 paper every week. That's not necessary. And also, I think there are some lovely liturgies that are kind of off the shelf, really, that can be, confessions and sort of statements of faith and so forth that reflect creation tide, and that they, in some ways, they actually save you work because you can use them, and just making sure there's one of those every quarter or something like that. I think it's I know it sounds cliche, but it is the drip, drip, drip. It's the little things, and it does eventually. It does become part of the lifeblood, and people know that it's not just those loopy eco warriors. This is actually all of us. So,
Thank you, Tom. And Anna Sue wanted to make a comment. Do you want to unmute and make a comment, Anna Sue?
Thank you, Heather. My name is Anis. I'm from Newtown and Lozells, Benefice. I want to commend really St. Christopher's for that splendid work that you've done over the years, and to you, Simon and Tom and your team, making this quite visible. You actually have made hope visible for a lot of parishes, and I think very, very few parishes in the Church of England have got that gold. So it is worth celebrating it in all the way. And you own it, and you have it, and you've done very, very well. I just wanted to say that there is a lot of work that goes into that. Not trying to scare people away, but I think there is need for commitment and consistency, and sticking to the plan. Once you decide to go for either bronze or silver, or gold, for that matter. And the website is very helpful, because it prompts you with questions, and with a very good collaborative team in your parish, it's doable, it's possible. We just want to encourage members on the call tonight, and say, when you go away, if you haven't started, think about embarking on that process. The diocese is there to help. Heather, the environmental team, Patrick, all those people are there to help. And I'm also in the advisory team for the diocese. We also have got a plan that we're working with in our benefice and on silver, and we're still trying to work and get things going all the time. Just some some facts that you may find quite interesting. We use candles in our churches, and do you know that one candle burns at a temperature of about 1,000 degrees, and that one candle can produce about 800 watts. The more the candles we use, the more the energy we burn. And each candle produces a certain amount of carbon monoxide. The more the candles we burn, the more the carbon monoxide we produce. The key to this is the time frame, the window that we burn candles during our services in church. 1 hour, 2 hours. The longer the time, the more the heat we produce, the more we contribute to the global effect. What type of candles do we need? What kind of wicks do we need in there? What kind of burning material? Because at the moment they are using tallow. Is there something, because we may see it as something that is very, very little. But the more the candles that we burn in the diocese on a Sunday, in the Church of England on a Sunday, we are contributing quite significantly. Do we still need 2 candles? Do we need 1 candle? Do we have an alternative that we can use to reduce all those effects? But
Thank you, Anna Sue. Yeah, thank you. And would anybody else, are there any questions? There's no questions at the chat at the moment, or no hands up, physical or
yeah, Heather, if you can just ask one
yeah,
question. Do we?
yeah.
I mean, this is a wonderful slide. Can we have this tabled for the Diocesan Synod in the future?
So what we're doing today is we're recording this, Anna Sue, and that recording will be available to the DECs, the Deanery Environmental Champions who are on this call, will be able to circulate it to all the people who are on this call, and we'll have it available, a link available, so other people can learn from it. So Simon and Tom don't need to keep repeating what they've said today. They've said it once and we're recording it. So have we got any more questions? Come on, you people, all you people that wanted to. Oh, Caroline, you.
I've got a very simple question for Tom. Is it any tree that you plant in the churchyard that needs the Archdeacon's consent, or is it because it's alongside the road that you had to?
Really good question, and I have to confess I don't know. I remember reading something that said you were supposed to have the Archdeacon's permission. I think it's because obviously eventually it could, root systems and so on. But yeah, I think I think occasionally it's okay to, particularly for environmental things, it's okay to ask forgiveness sometimes, not permission. So I would, if in doubt, I'd go for it. And then if yeah, I just think it works better.
So
You do need consent though, don't you?
well, can I just build on that? I think Tom's been very modest, but we got the trees planted, but also it was during COVID, so we started doing services when we started meeting in person again under the proper guidelines in the car park opposite. And I think that was quite a special experience of holding our church service outside in our church grounds, not hidden away in the building. And also, we put yellow streamers on all the trees and the new ones with a sign up saying, basically did an activity for praying for our community so that our community could see, oh, what were those new trees? What are the new bits of material streaming? And then there was a sign saying these represent prayers for our congregation for our community during this difficult time. So there's lots of wonderful creative things I think we found out on the way.
And can I just say, planting a tree in a churchyard requires permission of the PCC and the Archdeacon.
Thank you, Anna Sue. And Sheena, I think Sheena Heaton's got a question.
But it's not so much a question. Just reiterate what other people have said. You are supposed to have permission from the Archdeacon. One of them outside the window of the Archdeacon who lives in our vicarage. And he hasn't made any comment or haven't had any follow-up from that. So I don't think it's top of their priority list, quite honestly. But could I just reiterate one or two points that I think we at St. Peter's have made in the past about how we got our gold award. and to say how much I agree with what Tom and Simon have said. The record keeping is extremely important. We have regular meetings of our eco group with an agenda, and we keep minutes, and we report to every meeting of the PCC. And this was something that A Rocha commented about when we had our inspection. We timetable intercessions in a prayer calendar, and make sure that we have at least one prayer for the environment monthly, and more often during Creation Tide. Nobody has actually mentioned Creation Tide this evening, and we found it a very useful way of getting a message across, if you like, to the congregation. We've done plays during that time. We've had quizzes and got people to make pledges and so forth. We have a green communion on all 4 Sundays in Creation Tide, and we use music as well as a green liturgy. Another thing which hasn't been mentioned is fair trade, and I don't know whether you've had some sort of a fair trade stall or ability for people to buy fair trade goods at St. Christopher's, but that's another way of lifestyle and helping people to access those particular goods, and also just simple things like listing some of the things that you can buy in the supermarket that are fair trade that people don't always realize. Just 1 or 2 comments that I hope might be useful.
Thank you, Sheena. And there's a couple of questions in the chat which I'll ask. Daniel from All Saints Kings Heath asks, is some of your heating still gas, and do you use a green tariff for that? That's one question.
Yeah, I can answer that. We found the green energy tariffs really difficult. Electricity's been fine. The gas, we've used what the Church of England's recommended as a sort of green tariff in terms of offset. One of the issues for us is the ones that the Church of England have recommended have tended to change each year, and we have had real issues changing one of our suppliers. And this is, doing the right thing. How difficult should it be to change? Not difficult at all. But our administrator, Lucy, has spent 6 months or longer providing energy readings back to both suppliers who don't want to change. So I think there's a word of warning there. It's the record keeping, but also sometimes things go fine. Sometimes things really, really don't go fine due to no fault of your church congregation or anywhere else, and it's kept meticulous record keeping to help the switch there. So I suppose if you look on the Church of England website, at any given time, they'll have a recommended range of tariffs, which then tend to swap. Just looking at other questions. Climate Stewards carbon footprint audit. Is this, I think this is the 360 one. Which A Rocha recommend. It looks daunting, but some of it's quite straightforward, because some of it is just saying if your turnover is 100,000, you put it in and it makes assumptions of what the impact of your HR and computers and things are, so that it tries to simplify a lot of it, or just give it a go. The thing we've struggled with is we sort of used our own, then we used the diocese, and then we used A Rocha, and they all sort of ask things in slightly different ways. So I think just keep one spreadsheet that's the one version of the truth, and then fill in these different things in a slightly, depending on the information they want. But you as an organization need to be clear on the data you've got, and then decide how you want to put it into these things. just going down the comment, involvement of community organisations. Yep, stands cafe. I could have been lots of examples I put out with community involvement. It could have been wild holiday bunch of kids around a fire in a green park. It could have been doing weaving, could have been going on a walk. But because of the strong, basically the some of the staff in Springfield Project have got fantastic links to the arts. So they try and host things there. So they hosted the Stands Cafe community event around the use of single-use plastic, and that's why I used the poster there. They put on an event and a range of community activities, and Spark Hill doesn't have many venues, so we quite often provide that for community groups, and it was in line with what we wanted to do about promoting the environment. Oh, getting rid of single-use plastic. Tom's mentioned this. It's a really interesting policy thing. I'm going to be a bit controversial here, Tom. This was a decision made by men, but impacted women. I'm a sweeping generalisation because, as Tom quite graciously said, it it's absolutely the right thing. But actually, the impact is there's more washing up for shared lunches. Which members of your congregation is this policy going to impact? Are they involved? And absolutely, they are absolutely on board, but it does mean actually more help from all genders and backgrounds is required for washing up because it's a group activity in terms of washing things up and not using single-use plastic.
Thank you. And have we got any more questions from anybody with a virtual hand up or a real hand up? I can't see.
I think Caroline's put one up. Can I just say a big thanks to Caroline because I learned from her presentation about gold about the importance of audit and note taking. So so we use that a lot for effectively doing our submission.
I think that was, I mean, thank you, but I think it was Sheena.
Sorry. What's happened is you've moved around, and and you're all very small. So thank you to yeah.
Yeah, my thing was just to add a bit to what Simon was saying about the Church of England's recommendations about energy providers. I think there's going to be a bit more stability on that now because they did commission an independent consultancy to do a deep dive into exactly how green different electricity and gas providers are. And it's pretty clear on the electricity that it's Ecotricity, Octopus, and Good Energy. On the gas, the conclusion they came to is there is no good answer. The best of the worst are ones that offset in some way, really. So, but I think the plan is that they will ask the consultants to revisit that because it is obviously a changing field.
And thank you to Caroline, who's been involved with the national group working on that. So we're very grateful to Caroline's input into that national group to get recognised renewable providers. So thank you, Caroline.
I think,
and you're all very quiet.
I can just,
Marilyn, sorry, you're all very
I'll
quiet.
just wrap it for a bit. But I think
Go on.
the point that Caroline made is really important because someone else made the point about our energy and carbon footprints. One of the things, apart from the tariffs, is trying to move over time a lot of our energy to electricity, because then we know those tariffs are better than gas. The other thing the energy audit said was to sort of future proof. So we might not be able to afford heat pumps right now, but if we're putting things in terms of heating controls and things like that, we should be asking engineers to say, in 10 years' time, I might be putting a heat pump in. Where would you think I put it? Can you just think about where you put the controls and the pipes in? And the other thing that didn't come, it sort of came up in this survey, but not as strongly as I thought, is the issue around adaptation. One of the issues we've got in our community building, which is only 20 years old, is overheating. It's got glass down one side, it's glass on the other, and so some of the environmental measures we've got are actually blackout heat blinds to stop overheating, and trying to have a fan in to basically suck cold air in or circulate the heat around the building. Um, I'm an ex-town planner, and the building only got planning permission because a planner said it would look really nice with loads of glass down one side, which isn't appropriate for a children's centre, but it got approval. And for the last 20 years, we've been living with a bad planning decision and trying to deal with the heating thing. Conversely, the church is quite cool during during the summer. So the Springfield project, like lots of other places across Birmingham, provide warm spaces in the winter, a guaranteed place on a guaranteed time you could go and be warm and looked after. There will probably be more push to provide a cooling space, of which most of our churches are in a great place to provide, given the old drafty buildings. And that is going to be increasingly an issue over the sort of summer periods.
Thank you, Simon. Somebody's asked, did you get any input? That's Fred at Christchurch, Selly Park. Did you get input from the diocese, Fred Smith and Ben Smith and co?
I think Tom could bring it. Ben came and visited us to check if there was anything else we could access. I think if we're at this stage now, we'd be using Ben a lot more. I don't think he was in post when we'd started, so we would already gone and done some of the things. Tom, have you got anything to add?
For a case of sort of checking in with him occasionally that we weren't doing anything that the diocese would find difficult to sanction. But as I say, we found that there was enough of a driver from within rather than using Ben to give us direction.
But Ben is very happy to provide advice and guidance wherever a church wants it, and not just the high energy using churches. If other churches would like assistance, he's happy to provide that.
And especially in relation to if the church heating system is coming to the end of its life, that's a very, very important time to get in touch with Ben and to be helped to look at alternatives. So I'm just conscious we're about, I don't know, we've got about 7 minutes or something to go. So if anybody...
John is waving at you.
John, sorry, John, go on.
Yeah, if you don't mind me having a second go. It is interesting to hear Simon talking about in a way, the need for cooling in the children's centre, and maybe air conditioning is indicated. Now I know that Tom was involved more than 10 years ago in considering fitting solar panels to St Christopher's. Do you think that, Tom, do you think there's now with the climate of attitudes being very much changed, do you think there would be a possibility of reviving the issue of solar panels on St Christopher's, and maybe doing it sort of even more drastically by taking off the dormer windows and then arranging to sell the electricity to the children's centre, very much in the way that the big solar co-op are doing with buildings?
Simon, answer that first, and then I'll chip in.
And then, the energy audits we had done looked at all three buildings, which are close together, and looked at the energy load. And absolutely, the ideal is to have solar the original idea 10 years ago was to have solar on the children's centre roof, but there was huge issues with validating the guarantee of the roof, and huge issues about contractors. So there's an issue about the council effectively would have used it as an excuse to invalidate already a leaking roof. However, 10 years forwards, the load is there in the Springfield project. The audit says there's load there. Put the solar on the church because that's a better space if you could get permission, and then do a private wire from the church building to the Springfield Centre. It's an ideal energy generation and load. The big issue is there are other actions that have to be done first in the buildings, but the major issue is capacity. It's who would project manage this, who's going to go through the system. So it's definitely on the radar in terms of there's an energy improvement plan. It's not disappeared, but it's the issue is who's going to take it forwards. And also there are some basic things such as insulation, others that need to be done at the same time.
Well, Big Solar are looking at a new project at Kings Heath Baptist Church, and are beginning to look for other buildings in that area. So they would be people it would be worth having an initial discussion with, even if even if it doesn't come to anything.
Thanks.
Sure, I'm sure we'd be, up for those kind of conversations. Just one sort of thing to throw in. Our roof is okay, but if we get the wrong kind of rain, as it were, it does leak. And paradoxically, the fact that we might have to replace the roof at some point, that has brought PV panels back onto the agenda, because people will be thinking, well, if we're going to build a new roof, that's an ideal time to put the panels on. So weirdly, bad news can actually bring some constructive conversations.
Oh, and gentleman St. Stephen's,
Yeah.
Stephen from St. John's Warmley, please.
It's
Thank
just
you.
a quick question to Tom. You mentioned earlier about when you applied for the gold award, A Rocha sent somebody in to obviously make sure that things were, more or less in place as you said they were, kind of tick the boxes. At the moment where we stand, we've got 3 categories that we've achieved gold in on the latest survey for the gold award, and we've got 2 in silver. But I think what's been holding myself back, and probably some of the other team members, is that we don't feel that there's any way we could tick some of the boxes that are on the 2 where we're in silver. You know what I mean? So, am I right in saying it's not necessarily the fact that you have to have every box ticked as gold? And do A Rocha come in as before you after you've applied? Would they come in and advise to where they think you might be able to make improvements?
So I dealt with the Russia. My understanding is you have to score enough points in each category to reach gold, but we definitely didn't score like 100% in all of them. Our weakest one was the building, but we just basically scraped through on gold. The one we completely smashed it with was community, just because of the nature we are. So I suppose you get a sense of if you're going to be good enough by filling in the thing. If you're short of some things, I suppose you could just email them saying, look, we think we're really close, but can we book a conversation in? They're quite a small team, but if it might take a month or so to get a conversation. But yeah, they didn't. We had quite a lot of backs and forwards, partly because we were the 3rd one to get gold under the new standard, and so they're still working out some of the assessment process and things they needed to ask.
I'm just conscious of the time, and Anne Burgess has got a question, and if she can't find the electronic hand, so if she can come, and we've promised Tom and Simon that we'll finish on 9, so we won't. So Anne, speak up.
It's quite quick. Thank you very much for the interesting, really informative session. It's been great. Something that I think I would like another session on, which, you know, it is obviously hugely linked to the Eco Church with St. Christopher's. But I'm really interested in how you got the community project going. How did it originate? How has it grown? Because it's so obviously instrumental in involving so many people. And I'm guessing that your parish environment, a bit like St. Peter's, is, you know, has changed a lot over the last goodness knows how many years, and you know, it's probably a lot of Muslim people, and I'm wondering what comes first, the big congregation that can support the community project, or has the community project brought in people? That, so I'm just saying it would be good to have a session about that if that were a possible thing another time.
I think it's a really good question, and yes, we I think there are so many really fruitful things in there that you could unpack, and yeah, it's I think the only thing I would want to sort of, as we will leave people with, is so Christopher's is as much a work in progress and you know, one step forward, two step backs at times, as any other church. You know, we mess up, we make mistakes, we get things wrong. You know, it's just, you know, we're delighted to rejoice in this award. But you know, if you come to St. Christopher's, you'll see our shortcomings really quickly. So I you know, I think if you know, we are blessed with Simon, but we are also a group of fairly, you know, ordinary human beings. So if we can stumble our way there, then other people can as well.
And
I
just
just want to say, sorry, Simon, did you want to finish?
Just very briefly to answer Anne's question, it was a group of faithful women who prayed for 10 years in a drafty church hall. Some of them never saw the fruit of their prayers, but that's the result of a Springfield project that employs 60 people, 100 volunteers, and serves 7,000 people in the name of Jesus.
And that's a wonderful place to end. I can see John's got his hand up, but we did promise we'd finish at 9. And thank you for a fantastic evening. Really, really inspiring, and a good note to end on about prayer and taking action one step forward. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Caroline, for the recording. And particularly thank you to Simon and Tom. Thank you very much. And we can give them a round of applause. Thank you.